Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the stuff you're curious about, the sources you send us, and really just, boil it all down.
Yeah, get right to the core knowledge you need.
Exactly, like an express route, but maybe with some unexpected insights along the way.
For sure.
So today we're looking into something really fascinating, the connection between Kundalini Awakening and subconscious beliefs. This comes from a couple of articles you shared with us.
It's a great topic
Mhm.
because these two areas, the energetic side and the psychological side, they're just so tangled up in our spiritual growth, aren't they?
Totally.
We'll be exploring, what Kundalini Awakening actually involves and then how these subconscious beliefs, the ones we often don't even see, can kind of help or hinder that whole process.
Okay, maybe we should start with the basics just for a sec. Kundalini. People often hear about it in Hinduism or yoga.
Right. Often described as that powerful sort of coiled energy at the base of the spine.
Yeah. But it was interesting. One of our sources had a slightly different take. It described it more as the energy of Mother Earth itself.
Which is a really powerful way to think about it, actually.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it frames Kundalini less as purely mystical and more as something fundamentally connected to us, to the planet, our physical being.
Exactly. So that's what we'll do in this deep dive. Look at the signs, the effects of this awakening from maybe both angles.
And then really dig into how those subconscious beliefs, this stuff running in the background, how they play into it.
Right. How they might support the energy moving or maybe block it, and what that means for, your overall growth. And we know you, our listener today, you like to get the key info quickly but thoroughly. You want those aha moments, right?
Without getting totally overwhelmed.
Yes. So that's the plan. Clarity, focus. We'll try and deliver that.
Let's do it. We want to light up this connection, give you a clear way to understand what these sources are really saying.
Okay, first up, Kundalini Awakening. Thinking about it as this big energetic transformation.
Right. Our first source dives right into this.
What does it say happens when this energy starts, moving?
So it describes Kundalini as Earth's vital energy. And the awakening is when this energy starts moving up the Sushumna channel.
Which is like the main energy pathway along the spine.
Exactly. The central highway, you could say. And as it goes up, it passes through the chakras, those energy centers.
Okay, and here's where it got kind of specific and interesting. The source suggested that, in our normal 3D world, these chakras are barely open, 1 to 10%.
Yeah, that was a striking point.
Yeah.
And it specifically mentioned the root chakra, the one at the base being maybe only 4 or 5% open for most people.
Wow, and the implication was this affects our connection to the earth.
And maybe even our lifespan, which is pretty major if you think about it.
It really is. Did the source say how they figure out these percentages, or what fully open would even feel like?
It didn't really go deep into the how, more presented it as an observation about our current energetic state. The idea being a more open state means more grounding, more vitality.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, distinguishing between the different stages, the source talked about Kundalini awakening or activation versus Kundalini ascension. What's the difference there?
So awakening or activation,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the initial spark. The energy starts moving, and that kicks off changes mental, emotional, spiritual. It's the start of the journey upwards.
Right.
Ascension, though, that's when the energy actually reaches the crown chakra at the top of the head.
Ah, okay.
And that leads to what the source calls a higher state of consciousness, soul awareness, basically enlightenment.
So awakening is the start. Ascension is reaching that peak awareness. Makes sense.
Awakening the spark, ascension the full flame.
Nice analogy.
Well,
And the source also drew a line between Kundalini awakening and just general spiritual awakening. They're not exactly the same thing.
no, not quite. Spiritual awakening is described more broadly like a deeper spiritual understanding, maybe big emotional or psychological shifts.
Okay.
Kundalini awakening is more specifically about that energy moving from the root chakra up through the body's system.
And the feeling can be different too, right? The source said Kundalini can feel really physical, like body vibrations, heat.
Yeah, very physical.
Yeah.
Whereas spiritual awakening might feel more mental, emotional, that sense of being connected to everything.
Fascinating. They can definitely overlap or influence each other, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And another interesting point was the triggers. It's not always, years of meditation.
Right. What else did it mention?
Well, things like psychedelic drugs, intense sexual experiences, trauma even,
Wow.
or something called Shaktipat energy transmission.
Shaktipat. What's that?
It's like a direct energy transfer from a teacher or someone already awakened.
Huh. Okay, so this energy can wake up in all sorts of ways, sometimes unexpectedly. Now, the symptoms. The source broke them down into primary and secondary, which seems helpful. Let's start with the primary ones, the main, maybe more positive shifts.
Yeah, the primary list sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Feeling more peaceful inside, fewer fears holding you back,
Mm-hmm.
less caught up in, like, everyday drama, more balance, more energy overall.
Less attachment to material stuff.
Right, and balancing the masculine and feminine aspects within yourself. Kind of an internal harmonizing.
That sounds pretty transformative.
Yeah.
It also mentioned pleasant body sensations,
Yeah.
but also maybe grief, like for the planet.
Yeah, grief for the planet or suffering. And also this inner push to make big, authentic changes in your life.
Okay.
And digging deeper. Like understanding realities causes more, feeling more empathy.
Connecting more easily with your soul or guides.
Exactly, and even getting glimpses of like past lives or other realities.
Wow, and these can also come after Shaktipat, that energy transmission.
The source says yes, suggesting that direct jolt can kickstart these positive shifts.
And it's good to remember these might start subtle, right? They build up over time.
Definitely. Not always a lightning bolt moment.
But then there's the other side, the secondary symptoms, sometimes called the dark symptoms. These sound like they could be, well, pretty challenging.
Yeah, they can be quite intense and honestly, potentially upsetting for someone going through them. Things like intense shivers or shaking.
Sleep problems.
Big time. Sleep issues, nervous system, hypersensitivity, like everything feels too loud, too bright.
Okay.
And even trouble telling reality from imagination. The source mentioned potential psychosis tendencies, which is, serious.
That is serious. What else was on that list? Visual stuff.
Yeah, visual disturbances like objects vibrating, intense heat or vibrations, or feeling like electricity is running through you.
Feeling scattered, maybe?
Fragmented. Exactly. That feeling shattered or fragmented.
Yeah.
Also, wild swings in energy, super wired 1 minute, exhausted the next.
Lucid dreams.
Vivid lucid dreams, feeling really raw and vulnerable emotionally.
Seeing lights or hearing music that isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, developing a savior complex.
A savior complex, like feeling you have to rescue everyone.
Yeah, that overwhelming urge.
Huh. Okay, the list keeps going. Out-of-body experiences, changes in vision or hearing.
Panic attacks, intense terror.
Strange food cravings or aversions.
Yes. And physical symptoms that doctors maybe can't diagnose, autoimmune stuff, digestive issues, nausea.
Okay, wow. That's a lot. And the advice here is really, really important, isn't it?
Crucial. The source stresses. Don't just assume these secondary symptoms are Kundalini. Rule out medical issues first.
Always see a doctor.
Always. Get checked out thoroughly. If everything comes back clear medically, then maybe consider talking to a knowledgeable spiritual guide about whether it could be energy related.
Right. Health first, always. Now, what about this idea of a failed Kundalini awakening? What does that mean?
According to the source, that's when someone has those difficult secondary symptoms, but none of the positive primary ones, and it just goes on and on.
And it suggests that when they look at these people energetically, sometimes they see issues like fractured energy fields, holes, or a lost connection to earth energy.
Or even, it mentioned, lower vibration entities attached. That sounds intense.
It does. The source doesn't elaborate much, but implies some kind of energetic interference or negative influence making things worse. Requires cleansing, basically.
Yeah, that sounds like it would need experienced help. And the source also warned about mistaking, like, temporary energy rushes for the real deal.
Right. An energy surge is just temporary. It doesn't really change you long term. Real Kundalini awakening is an ongoing transformation.
So people who are maybe really eager but new to this might jump to conclusions.
Exactly. They might misinterpret a temporary spike.
So the key is discernment. And the source recommended grounding, right? Like nature time.
Yes, grounding, regular medical checkups, and getting guidance from trusted spiritual sources.
Yeah.
To avoid, getting lost in self-delusion about it all.
Makes sense. Stay balanced, stay informed, integrate it healthfully.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Healthy, balanced, sustainable integration for your well-being.
Okay, perfect pivot. Let's switch gears to the second source, focusing on subconscious beliefs. This feels so important for any kind of transformation, energetic or otherwise.
Absolutely vital. This source uses a really useful analogy, the iceberg.
Ah, yes, the classic iceberg.
Exactly. Conscious lessens the things we know. We know that's the tip above the water.
Right.
But the massive hidden part underneath, that's our subconscious beliefs.
So the stuff we learn deliberately, math, history, how to bake bread that's conscious, we know how we learned it.
Precisely. That's our explicit knowledge, stuff we get from school, books, direct teaching. We can talk about it.
But the subconscious beliefs, that giant hidden base, where do they come from? How do they work?
The source says they develop slowly through lots of small experiences, especially when we're really young, in early childhood.
Okay.
And they get categorized basically as positive or limiting, like I'm capable versus I'm not good enough, or the world is basically safe versus the world isn't safe.
And the tricky part is they feel like reality, right? Not just like something we learned.
Totally. They feel like objective truth. They become our default settings, operating under the radar.
And they're hard to just argue away with logic because they formed so early.
Exactly. They operate like our automatic programming, shaping how we see things, what we think is possible for us.
This is where the conflict can happen then. Like, we consciously learn something new.
But if it bumps up against a deep subconscious belief, the belief often wins out.
Right. The source had that example of public speaking, didn't it?
Yeah, you can learn all the techniques, know them cold.
But if you subconsciously believe you're unworthy of attention,
You'll probably still struggle, feel that anxiety. The belief overrides the conscious skill.
so the subconscious acts like this powerful filter for what conscious knowledge we can actually use.
That's a great way to put it. A filter.
That explains so much why sometimes you read a self-help book, you get it intellectually, but nothing really changes deep down.
Precisely. Because changing conscious understanding, relatively easy with new info, but changing subconscious beliefs, that's different. It usually takes repeated experiences that contradict the old belief.
And maybe some emotional processing, too.
Often, yes. Emotional processing, integration. The source compared it to wearing a new path in a field. Takes time, consistent effort.
I like that. Not just thinking differently, but experiencing differently again and again.
Right. The lived experience teaches the subconscious a new reality.
This also explains why some changes feel easier than others, doesn't it? If the subconscious is on board, it's smoother sailing.
But if it's fighting you, it feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Unseen resistance.
So real personal growth needs that blend intellectual, emotional, maybe spiritual work.
To get the conscious goals and the deeper beliefs lined up.
And things like therapy, coaching, meditation, journaling.
Yeah.
Those help with that integration.
Exactly. Tools to bring awareness to those deeper patterns and start experimenting with new ways of being.
Now, the source had this interesting idea about the soul having life lessons, an optimal path.
Yeah, the idea is the soul comes in with certain things it wants to learn, mapping out this ideal path for growth.
But limiting beliefs can kind of obscure that path, throw us off course.
That's the idea. They act like veils, leading us into maybe unnecessary struggles. So releasing those beliefs helps us get back onto that optimal path.
That's quite empowering, actually. Like, we can clear the way for our soul's journey by working on these beliefs.
It is. It suggests we have agency in navigating away from those detours created by old programming.
And the power when they are aligned conscious lessons and subconscious beliefs.
Oh, yeah. When they line up, action feels congruent, effortless, no inner battle.
Versus that constant struggle and energy drain when they conflict.
Right. That inner congruence is incredibly powerful. Less resistance, less self-sabotage.
So it's about bringing compassionate awareness to those deep patterns.
And then actively creating new experiences that can slowly shift the subconscious landscape.
An ongoing integration.
Yeah, recognizing the power of the subconscious, but consciously working to align it with where you want to go, through action and reflection.
Okay, so now let's bridge the gap, the crucial connection. How do these deep subconscious beliefs we just talked about actually influence the powerful energy of Kundalini Awakening?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting, seeing how they weave together.
Yeah.
Essentially, those subconscious beliefs can act like major filters or even energetic roadblocks for Kundalini.
Roadblocks, how so?
Well, think about it. If someone has a deep belief like, I'm not worthy, or it's not safe to feel powerful, that belief itself might create like an energetic tightness or blockage in their system.
Oh, I see. Like the belief manifests physically or energetically?
Potentially, yeah. Hindering the free flow of that Kundalini energy up through the chakras. Fear or resistance, creating energetic knots, you could say.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, and what about those secondary symptoms, the more challenging ones? Could beliefs make those worse?
Very likely, yes. Those deep fears, anxieties, negative ideas about oneself. They could absolutely amplify the difficult symptoms.
For example?
Well, if the intense energy starts moving and someone has a core belief that they're fundamentally flawed or undeserving, that energy surge might trigger immense fear, maybe intensifying things like panic attacks, or that feeling of fragmentation, or even the psychosis-like symptoms.
Wow. So the underlying belief system could really color the whole experience,
Dramatically.
which highlights why that self-awareness piece from the second source, looking at our beliefs, is so important for anyone experiencing or curious about Kundalini.
Exactly. Understanding how your own unique belief system might be interacting with these powerful energies seems key to navigating it more effectively, more consciously.
Recognizing and maybe starting to work on those limiting beliefs could actually, what, clear the path energetically.
That's the idea. It could potentially help unclog those chakras, allow the energy to rise more smoothly, more gently, cultivating an inner space that's more welcoming to the transformation, less resistant.
And it feels like both sources, in different ways, pointed towards seeking guidance, right?
Definitely. For understanding Kundalini itself, finding a knowledgeable, trusted spiritual guide.
And for the belief work.
Maybe belief healing practices or therapy or coaching someone skilled in helping you identify and work through those deep subconscious blocks.
So experience support can be really valuable on both fronts.
Hugely valuable. Navigating Kundalini in the subconscious is complex territory. Guidance can make a big difference.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, we've seen Kundalini Awakening as this potent, energetic shift with a whole spectrum of signs: physical, emotional, spiritual.
And we've explored how our subconscious beliefs are this hidden foundation, powerfully shaping our experiences and our ability to integrate new things, including intense energy.
And the big takeaway is how connected they are. Working on those subconscious beliefs isn't separate from the spiritual journey. It can actually support it, especially something as powerful as Kundalini.
Precisely. Addressing those beliefs might lead to a smoother, more integrated, maybe more harmonious awakening experience.
It definitely gives you something to think about. Considering, the interplay between your own beliefs and your experiences, what unseen foundations might be shaping your path right now?
Yeah, what might be influencing your growth, your understanding, without you even realizing it?
And what could happen if you started to gently explore, maybe even reshape some of those deeper, less visible beliefs?
That's a powerful question to sit with, a very personal one.
Absolutely. So we encourage you to explore your own inner world further and maybe look into the resources hinted at in the sources: spiritual readings, belief healing, spiritual schools, if any of this really resonated with you today.
There's always more to uncover within ourselves. Keep exploring.